My name is Melissa Carter, and I'm 30 years old. I was 8 months pregnant when everything in my life flipped upside down on the day that was supposed to be one of the happiest, my baby shower. I had spent weeks trying to plan a simple, loving celebration in Austin, Texas. It was meant to be peaceful, joyful, a day filled with hope. But instead, it became the moment I finally saw my family for what they truly were. From the very beginning, my mother Denise made it clear that she didn't think I was capable of handling anything on my own, not even planning a baby shower. She insisted on changing the theme I had chosen, overrode my guest list, and moved the venue to her country club without even asking me. "It's more appropriate," she said with that tight-lipped smile that always masked her judgment. My sister Brianna followed along like a shadow, rolling her eyes at every decision I made, acting like my happiness was some kind of personal offense to her. Ryan, my husband, could see how much it was affecting me. He tried stepping in, offering to handle things or talk to Denise directly, but she waved him off like he was an annoyance. "This is a mother's job," she snapped, completely dismissing him and me. I wanted to scream, to take back control of what was supposed to be my day, but part of me still hoped things would settle down. I stayed quiet, holding in my frustration, convincing myself it wasn't worth starting a fight over. The day of the shower arrived, and I tried my best to put on a brave face. I wore the dress I'd picked weeks ago, the one that made me feel beautiful despite how swollen my feet were and how tired I felt. The venue, Denise's precious country club, was decorated the way she wanted. Stiff white linens, gold accents, and no trace of the soft pastels I'd originally planned. Still, I smiled and greeted guests, telling myself it was just for a few hours. I could get through it. As the event went on, I felt more like a guest at someone else's party than the expectant mother being celebrated. Every time I opened my mouth, Denise cut me off. Every time I tried to explain a choice I'd made, Brianna laughed under her breath. The tension was thick, but I kept pretending, desperate to salvage the moment. When it came time for me to thank everyone, I stood up and took a deep breath, trying to block out their glares and just focus on the people who had come of love. But as soon as I finished my short speech, Denise stood up slowly and began clapping mockingly. "Well, isn't that adorable?" she said loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Melissa, you can't even organize a baby shower without turning it into a disaster." Laughter didn't follow, just silence. The guests looked uncomfortable, some shifting in their seats, others avoiding eye contact. My cheeks burned with humiliation, and for the first time that day, I felt something crack inside me. I tried to hold back the tears, but my hands shook as I tried to leave the room. I needed space, air, anything to escape this suffocating atmosphere. But before I could make it to the door, Denise grabbed my arm, yanking me back with a strength I didn't expect from her. "You ungrateful little brat," she spat, her voice cold with fury. "You think you can just ruin everything and get away with it?" I froze, my heart racing in my chest. And then, without warning, she kicked me hard right in my pregnant belly. The force knocked the breath out of me, and I stumbled backward, my vision blurring. Before I could even react, she shoved me with all her strength. My body flew backward, and in an instant I was falling right into the deep, decorative pond that had been set up as part of the decor. The shock of the cold water hit me like a punch to the chest. I gasped for air, the weight of my belly pulling me under. Panic gripped me as I flailed, trying to stay afloat. My heart pounded in my ears, and all I could think was, "Is my baby okay?" My hands grasped at the slippery rocks, but I couldn't get a grip. I heard shouting from above, but everything felt distant, muffled by the water around me. Then, strong hands pulled me up, lifting me out of the pond. I barely registered that it was Ryan until I was safe in his arms, his face pale with terror. "Melissa, are you okay? Please talk to me," he begged, his voice breaking. My head was spinning, my body trembling, but the only thing that mattered in that moment was the tiny life inside me. I couldn't breathe until I heard him cry out, "My baby is alive." The guests rushed around us, some calling 911, others standing in shock, unsure of what to do. Brianna was standing in the back, her arms crossed and a smirk still lingering on her face, as if this was some kind of sick joke. I couldn't even look at her. She was as guilty as my mother. Denise stood frozen, her expression cold, her anger still simmering, but now there was no hiding it. The reality of what she had just done sank in, and I could see it in her eyes, the desperation to cover her tracks. Ryan held me tightly, his voice barely a whisper. "I've got you. You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you or the baby." His warmth was the only thing grounding me, the only thing that made me feel like I could keep going. I wanted to scream at Denise, but I couldn't. I was too afraid, too exhausted. But I knew this moment would change everything. The sound of sirens soon filled the air, and within minutes, the police arrived. They quickly took control of the situation, questioning everyone, but it was clear that Denise wasn't going to be allowed to walk away this time. I was in a daze, still trembling from the cold and the shock, but I could feel the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me. The officer approached me, taking down my statement, but my mind kept drifting back to Denise, her cold, angry face and the smirk on Brianna's lips. It wasn't long before Denise was handcuffed and escorted away. Her protests filled the air, her voice high-pitched and full of venom, but it didn't matter. The damage had been done. Brianna didn't even look at me as the officers asked her a few questions. She was standing in the corner, arms folded, refusing to acknowledge what had just happened. But then something I never expected happened. My father, Harold, finally stepped forward. He was always the silent one, the one who let Denise run the show, who never stood up for me. But today, something inside him broke. "I'm done," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Melissa, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you." The words hit me harder than I expected, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father as the man he was supposed to be. The one who would stand by me, no matter what. And with that, he made a decision that shocked everyone. He filed for divorce from Denise. The news spread quickly. Denise's arrest was all over the local news, and the media attention only added to the chaos. But I wasn't thinking about the headlines or the gossip. What mattered was what came next. The aftermath of what happened that day left me emotionally shattered, but it also gave me a sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't go back to that toxic family, no matter how much it had once meant to me. I had Ryan, and I had my baby on the way. That was enough. The court hearings came soon after, and I sat there, holding Ryan's hand, feeling a mixture of anger and relief. Denise was sentenced to 4 years in prison for assault, and Brianna was issued a restraining order, her behavior under scrutiny. It wasn't the closure I had imagined, but it was something. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt empowered. My father's support meant everything, and as we left the courtroom, I could finally breathe again. Months passed, and the wounds, both physical and emotional, began to heal. I focused on preparing for the birth of my baby and the life I would build with Ryan. The anger and hurt from that day slowly faded, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. I refused to let my family's toxicity define me any longer. I was stronger than I'd ever realized, and I wasn't going to let them drag me down again. Finally, the day arrived. After hours of labor, I held my son, Caleb, in my arms. He was healthy and beautiful, and for the first time in what felt like forever, everything was right. Ryan was beside me, his eyes full of love and pride as he gently kissed my forehead. "We did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. That day, as I looked into Caleb's bright eyes, I made a promise to myself. I would protect him from the chaos, from the pain of my past, and give him the love and stability that I had always longed for. And with Ryan by my side, I knew I could finally build the life I'd always dreamed of, one that was free from the shadows of my family's cruelty. As I sat there in the quiet of the hospital room, holding Caleb close, the full weight of what had happened hit me. It had been a long, exhausting journey, not just physically, but emotionally. I had been through so much in the last few months, but in that moment, with my son in my arms and Ryan beside me, I knew I had made the right choice. Walking away from my family, from the people who had hurt me, was the hardest thing I had ever done. But it was also the most important thing, and I didn't regret it. The first few weeks after Caleb was born were a blur. Ryan and I settled into our new life together, far away from the drama that had once consumed me. We moved into a cozy house on the outskirts of Austin, a quiet neighborhood where we could start fresh. Every day felt like a new beginning. Caleb's cries were the soundtrack of our mornings, and his tiny hands wrapped around my finger gave me a sense of peace I'd never known. But as much as I tried to focus on the joy of motherhood, my past kept creeping in. The phone calls from unknown numbers, the occasional message from Brianna that I ignored, and the lingering fear that one day, Denise might try to reach out. It was hard to shake the feeling that I wasn't completely free. That somehow, they might find a way to drag me back into their mess. One afternoon, when Caleb was about 6 weeks old, I was sitting in the living room, nursing him and watching the sunlight filter through the window when Ryan came in holding an envelope. His face was serious, and I immediately felt a knot form in my stomach. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice shaky. He handed me the envelope, his eyes not meeting mine. "It's from your lawyer," he said softly. I took the envelope, my hands trembling slightly as I opened it. It was a letter from my lawyer, informing me that Denise was appealing her sentence. She was trying to reduce her prison time, claiming that the circumstances of her actions had been exaggerated. My heart dropped. I thought I was done with her, that I could finally move on. But she wasn't giving up. I felt a surge of anger and fear rise in me, but it was quickly replaced by something stronger: resolve. I had fought so hard to get to this point, to take control of my life and protect my family. I wasn't going to let her do this to me again. "Not now, not ever. We'll deal with this," Ryan said, sitting beside me and wrapping his arm around my shoulders. "We've come this far. We're not going back." I nodded, taking a deep breath. I had learned that I couldn't control everything, but I could control how I responded, and I wasn't about to let Denise dictate my future. I had already lost so much to her control, but I wasn't going to let her steal any more of my peace. We decided to meet with my lawyer the next day. The conversation was tough, but it was necessary. Denise was determined to fight, but my lawyer assured me that there was no chance of her appeal succeeding. Her actions were clear, and the case had been solid. I would be protected. Still, the anxiety didn't leave me completely. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still lurking somewhere in the background, waiting for an opportunity to hurt me again. As the months passed, the appeal process dragged on. But life with Ryan and Caleb was more than enough to fill my heart. The joy I felt watching my son grow was indescribable. Every day, he was a new version of himself, smiling, laughing, discovering the world around him. And I couldn't help but feel like I was discovering the world again too, one filled with love and second chances. Ryan and I made a promise to each other. We would build the kind of life we had always dreamed of, free from the toxic grip of my family. It wasn't going to be easy, but we were in it together. And that made all the difference. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. The nightmares of Denise's assault faded, replaced by the soft, soothing memories of Caleb's first laugh and Ryan's gentle touch. One day, as I sat on the porch watching Caleb take his first steps, I realized that I had finally left the past behind. I wasn't running from it anymore. I was moving forward, choosing my family, my happiness, my future. And that was all I needed. Months later, we received the final ruling on Denise's appeal. It was rejected. She would serve out her sentence, and any hope she had of ever being a part of my life again was officially gone. The relief that washed over me was like nothing I had ever felt before. The closure I had longed for was finally mine. And with that, I knew my life was truly my own. Ryan and I were building something beautiful, something that I could be proud of. I no longer felt like a victim or a survivor. I was a mother. I was a wife. And most importantly, I was free.